Welcome along. Thanks a lot for taking Indiana Sports Beat along for the ride as we come to you, of course, from the Golf Club Eagle Point Studios today. This is Jim Coyle, and we got a special program as the Indiana Football Media Days are underway. Tom Allen is going to be first up on the dais, and we're going to take you live to that press conference, and let's do that now.
Any questions you have, glad to take them this time.
Guys, we have some new guys here, so if you can say your name and affiliation. Great. Pete, go ahead.
Peter Premio, IULeaders.com. Tom, and I know the building the depth in the offensive and defensive line is crucial. In the camera, how do you go about doing that? What's the key to that?
Well, to me, the first step is recruiting. And then the second step is once we get those guys on campus to really do a tremendous job of getting them strong. And that's been a huge focus, a challenge. I specifically singled those guys out, to both our staff, our strength staff, and to the team itself, offense and defensive line, to really have a great summer, to be able to put on good weight, to get stronger. We had goals for every one of those guys over the summer and to keep them on track from a technical perspective, things they're going to work on fundamentally, those carry into fall camp, And it's going to continue to be a focal point in terms of getting proper reps. One thing we're doing a little bit, modifying our schedule itself in regards to practice time and reps to create more depth. We're going to have some more rep opportunities for our threes and even sometimes fours. And so just trying to get guys on the field, as much technique work. We expanded our individual periods, which I think will help us get more technique work to get these young guys brought along faster. And then just got to go play football, So to me, extending our team periods, probably 5 minutes each to get more reps with those younger guys. So just have a plan in place because we know how critical that is on both sides of the ball, and it's going to be a big key for our success.
Matt Weaver, Indiana, of course, Coach, Chicago, you mentioned that there's obviously two guys, Deshaun Brown and Antoine Whitner. They're waiting on resolution on Darrell.
Yeah, Deshaun Brown's here and is fully cleared, and he's ready to roll. And still, in the final few days here, hopefully, we're with Antoine Whitner, so he should be here shortly. So, but very promising on both ends. But yeah, Deshaun's already totally cleared.
Yeah, job line several times.
Mm-hmm.
So, quarterback-wise, part of the defensive line reps, how do you split that up among the quarterbacks? Is it the same first team line, three team line? How do you?
Well, we'll go. As I said, even so, you kind of look at your whole, your depth at each position, and that was a big part of our discussions as we met as the staff during the last few weeks to get those reps set up, and every period is going to be a little bit different. But, you're going to have at least, ones, twos, and threes going, and you'll have different guys taking reps with the different groups, and we'll just intermix those guys and give them a chance to be able – because obviously it's a little different when you're working with those different groups, So, but I think that all three will be rotated within those groups as well, initially for sure. And then as every day passes and the weeks pass, you get more and more zeroed in on, kind of how you see it playing itself out. So, but it's very important, when we do, special situations to be able to get those guys in those opportunities where it's 2-minute periods or full team, or whether we're doing, live goes, and the quarterbacks will never be full bore live in regards to being tackled during fall camp, but there'll be different tempos that we'll use for our teams. And it's important. And even blitz periods, be able to get to feel the pressure, check, be able to make the checks and adjustments, and whether it's a physical verbal adjustment or it's a sight adjustment with the route. So those are all important parts of the process of getting our quarterbacks ready.
Similar question about the secondary. Just a lot of bodies there. I know you like your depth there, but how do you make sure that everybody gets the work they need to so that you're sharp both at the front end and then with guys in your twos?
Yeah, there's no question. And so it's a great problem to have. I mean, like I said, we're going to even talk about it tonight in our team meeting about how our practices are going to be set up to get more guys looks, and it's the secondary is another example of that. Linebackers, another example of that. Even having to talk about even doing, having the fourth group at times come in and get some work, So there's a definite plan in place to be able to see those guys. But the key is when they get their shot, they got to make the most of it, And then the scrimmages are going to be big, which those will be down the road here. But just being able to from a practice structure perspective, we have got to get those guys reps, so, and it's, we're not going to be doing, scout teams yet, that's still weeks away. So to be able to get those guys against each other, you really have to do a great job of being very organized as a staff, and every rep's going to matter. And those guys know that, and I just think that it's just a result of having, quality guys and quality depth, and that's part of it. So that's a good problem to have, but we definitely have to make some adjustments.
Yeah, Coach, you mentioned that in the quarterback competition that Peyton was the guy that the other two had to beat out. What about him in particular is kind of put it in that position?
Well, I mean, first of all, I think he's a returning starter, and I think there's a lot of merit in that, and he's earned it, and I think there's a level of, when you put yourself in that position, like he has in the past, and, he earned a chance to be a starter 2 years ago, and then did it last year as well. And so to me, reward him for that, but at the same time, like I said, I've mentioned it with other positions, and I've told Stevie Scott the same thing, and same thing with our linebackers and safeties and corners and, receivers and offensive line. It's not just quarterback. That's the one that usually gets talked about, but, those other guys have the opportunity and will have the opportunity to compete for the position and beat them out, so, but like when you just say who's going to go in with the ones the first time, it's going to be Peyton, because he's the returning starter at that position. I think he's earned the right to have that spot.
Jim Coyle, Indiana Sports Beat. You talk about making that determination of who starts at quarterback is the guy who can lead this team. What does that specifically look like for you?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it gets asked a lot, and it's worthy of that. And I think that you just go through as a coach, and some of it is your gut feel, in terms of how you believe that guy can take your team down the field, and there's an execution piece to that to be able to distribute the football in both the run game and the pass game effectively. Its ability to move those chains, but I think at the end of the day, what it really comes down to is, and we're going to go through and we'll have stats and we'll have percentages on completion and first down effectiveness, third down effectiveness, all those things that go into creating an effective offense. But at the end of the day, it has to be, when it's minute 20 to go in the game and we got the ball, who do our guys believe is going to take us down the field and go score and go win the game? And to where we have the mindset as coaches and our team feels that as long as there's time on that clock and that guy is in the huddle leading our offense, that we got a chance to win. And so to me, that's called winning your team, win your teammates, who do they believe in. And it's not just liking the guy. It's not a popularity contest. It's about, because they're all three awesome guys, and it's who do they believe and who do we believe and who believes in himself enough to take this team down the field and go win the game. And so at the end of the day, you're judged on, the scoreboard as a coach and as a player. That's how we get judged professionally, and that's how we get judged in performance. And so that's a big part of it. And so to me, that's what, that position, I think, and we would all agree that teams usually go as far as the talent of their quarterback, and the play of their quarterback. And that's protecting the football. That's part of it too. That's about being able to do a really, really good job of understanding the offense and understanding the various things that can happen and make adjustments, whether it's verbal adjustments and, things you do with the receivers and it's run game reads and being able to do a great job of commanding that room and having that leadership piece and just exuding that confidence in the guys around you. And that position to me, as I say about linebackers, it demands production. It demands leadership, and those two key components don't change, and so it's just another opportunity this year. We had a conversation a year ago about this position coming in, and here we are again with an opportunity to do that. And I think competition makes everybody better. Okay. And it's human nature for that to be the case. And so I love, the opportunity we have. I love the number of guys in that room that have worked extremely hard, and you can say that for a lot of positions. And so we're going to have a very, very competitive fall camp that's going to, as we always say, iron sharpens iron. So we're going to sharpen each other each and every day and make each other better and get the product we want.
Zach and then Aaron.
I guess along that line too, how much, if at all, do you maybe lean on guys like more experienced guys in the offense in terms of getting feedback from them on just what they feel like works at that quarterback position? A guy like Coy, a guy like Nick, a guy like Donovan, do you kind of seek their input at any point?
There's no question, just kind of, I don't say it's a sit there and, have a direct, hey, who do you think our quarterback should be? But you can tell, as you talk to them. And I think, that's part of that's winning the team component, and those guys believing, even last night in the initial team meeting that you kind of get the, initial things you want some thoughts going on in their head. And I challenge them about, your mindset that drives your expectations and your beliefs. And to me, okay, what's the mindset of that quarterback, and his, the way he plays, the way he practices, the way he, exudes that confidence to the guys around. Does he make the people around him better? And those guys will know that. They'll feel that, as players on the team and players on offense, and talking to the defense. Hey, who do you, just like, what do you think about those different guys and how they throw the football and how they, look things off, and just, it's a whole big picture part. And I obviously have a perspective from a defensive angle oftentimes, and that's how I look at it. And so we just try to go through and I think, it's a very holistic approach to try and find, because it's going to be I think it's going to be highly, highly competitive. I really do. I think there's a lot of good things there, and I'm anxious to see how it all plays out.
Coach Aaron Manis from WDRB. In Chicago, you said one of the things you need this year is a quarterback to elevate the rest of the team. And you said it's Peyton's job, but you have to have that conversation with him. I need more from you if you're going to keep this job.
Well, I think it's a matter of, meeting with all three guys individually and just talking them through. And that's one thing I want to do a good job of as the head coach, is to really work them through this process and to help them know, what we need to see. And it's probably going to be more of a, hey, this is what I expect from this position, and obviously there's different, applications each guy will receive that with, in terms of how he, the things he knows he wants to do. And he's obviously been here long enough, and I know him well enough to have those open and honest conversations. And so, but the bottom line is that that's what I want and expect from that position, is to elevate the level of play in order for us to take the next step that we want to take as a program and as an offense. And that's a big part of what we have. And that's really, to me, we're talking about it here almost the whole time. And if you go to everybody's fall camp and, the NFL and every level, that person that plays that position is really, the key element to your team. And so that's why it's such a big deal.
And then Matt.
I coached Tom Bruce, Sports Illustrated, Maven. Oftentimes, that old football adage, when you have two or three quarterbacks, sometimes you don't have any, but it seems like you have a lot of confidence, at least for August 1st, in all three of those guys to be able to play well.
Yeah, I think sometimes that often is said when you have guys that you're trying to play them all in a game, and I think that's where it gets a little bit difficult, when people try to, and and I think that's probably the case in terms of reps to a certain degree. So that definitely has to be something that we focus in on here as we move into fall camp. But to me, I've clearly stated that we're going to have one quarterback that's going to be leading our team, and that's where you say, the process to get to that one guy, I think that's what we're going through right now. And that's where we're evaluating. But that's why I say that, we got several guys in every position that are competing to play. It doesn't mean we don't have, good players there that are going to have an issue because you got multiple guys. And I'm excited for having multiple guys, and so I've definitely been here enough times in situations where we didn't have a lot of guys, and I was very concerned, at this point in the season. So I just think that, that's why you recruit, and that's why you scour the country to find guys that come here and help us be a better football team. So to me, it's a matter of going through this process right now, and we'll take these next couple of weeks and figure it out. And then once we make that decision, that guy will be the person. But I will say, we've all seen, there's going to, things happen. Seasons are long. A lot of things go through this. And so guys got to be ready to go. And so no matter how it plays out for week one, you got to be able to be ready when called upon.
Coach, seems like, I know it's not set in stone, but it seems like you guys kind of got your whole line set, starting five. How big were these first few weeks, and how much are you watching? Kind of, you're going to obviously probably need 7, 8, 9, 10 guys to see that depth develop, and who kind of steps up behind those guys?
There's no question. I think that's, as we mentioned, it's one of my, key concerns / areas of emphasis. So, yeah, you really want 7 or 8 guys that you feel, are really good at perfect scenario is you got 10, you got a number 2 behind everyone. That's the next guy in. Doesn't always work like that. We always say we're going to play our best 5, so you kind of shuffle the deck sometimes when that happens. So that's the process of going through and creating depth at center, depth at guard. We kind of look at it as the inside guys, outside guys, and tackle bodies and guys that can play in the interior from more of a mass perspective. So that to me is going to be a big part of it. And you'll see different combinations of groups in there, not necessarily because of injuries, but just because we're trying to get more guys ready. So because we know that a guy like Matt Bedford is, even though he's a true freshman, was here in the spring, so he has a different level of rep base and experience that the guys like Tim Weaver, who just got here, doesn't have. So, but at the same time, got to get these guys ready, and we've got some redshirt freshmen that have had a whole off season to really develop and a full spring under the belt now, and so those guys need to rise up. And so, really going to emphasize getting those guys lots of reps during fall camp here. We kind of know what Coy can do. We know what Simon can do, and Hunter Littlejohn as well. So I just think that those 3 guys have really kind of established themselves as guys that are anchors there on that O line, which is exciting and a good thing. But got to bring those other guys along.
But you talk about the physical condition these guys are reporting on this year and what David's
Yeah, we go through and Dave's going to do a little presentation tonight to our whole team and just show where we came from, and it's been really neat to see, and I won't get too specific, but to be able to see us as a group, especially we had so many young guys last year, that played and just to kind of, if you kind of have a visual, I just kind of see a group of guys on there and you have their weight, and then you have their strength numbers, and everything just kind of just shifted up. Everybody we have a whole group of guys now. We had a lot of guys. We haven't really changed. There's not as many high-end guys. That's similar to what we've had, but the whole middle group here has just all shifted up. They're all stronger. They're more explosive. And I feel great about their condition right now. And I know our strength staff does an excellent job. And I actually was, I think other than maybe being at the Big Ten Media Days, we gave our guys the 4th of July day and that weekend off. Other than that, they were here all June and July. And I was at every workout. And so, like I said, except for the couple of days we were at Big Ten Media Days. And so I've watched them. I've been in there. That was by design. I want to be around our team as much as possible. And I love being around them and just watching them work, seeing them move and seeing these young guys get developed and watching our guys train together. So definitely a more powerful, more explosive team with better speed and more confidence, which that's an outgrowth of. I think that's where you get your confidence. Yeah, I really do. I think that's where that's one of the biggest benefits of having a great strength staff that the players believe in, and they really believe that those guys are going to make them, more explosive players. That's a key term for us, and that power. We've really gone away from the 1 rep max mentality. We've gone away from thinking about 40 times. It's miles per hour and speed in different ways, whether it's 10 yards, 20 yards, 30 yards, different segments of that. And then their power numbers, and which to me, that's football. And then we always talk about how does it transfer from the weight room to the field. And that's what I think our guys do as good as anybody in the country. And so, and that's created a different, a lot of emphasis on single leg things to create the change of direction, the explosive power in the game of football, finishing tackles, finishing blocks, and finishing runs, and all those things. So that to me is what I see. And so just a bigger, stronger. We're physically we're heavier. We went through all positions. Again, O-line, D-line was a really big emphasis for that. We're got more mass to us than we had a year ago on both sides of the ball, and that's important. So it's and it's still a process. We got a lot of young players. You go through and you look at our 2. Their junior and senior class, they're not very big, and so you have a big chunk of our guys are in the freshman, sophomore, whether it's redshirt sophomore, redshirt freshman, and freshman is the majority of our team, so, but that's just the way it is. And that's the 2 classes we've recruited as a staff here since I've been the head coach. And so, but excited about the mixture of the upperclassmen and the younger guys in the weight room.
Coach, how excited are you for the team, for having this opportunity, and what did you see in his growth and his readiness to kind of take over the team?
It's kind of been a long time in the making, we were together at Ole Miss and worked with his dad and really developed a strong friendship and a trust with each other on and off the field, and the way that he lives his life and the kind of focus he has and the things that matter to him and the things important to him and his family and known his wife for many, many years. And so the opportunity to get him here last year, I thought was really important that we spent time together before he started calling it. I just think that, I have my own personality on things that we do defensively, which was different from the way, we might have done it when we worked together, at Ole Miss. And so, he went off and became a coordinator and at Eastern Illinois he literally left us as a GA and went straight to become a coordinator, which does not happen very often. And then he was the youngest Division I coordinator in the country at South Alabama, playing in the Sun Belt, which is the conference that I coached in at Arkansas State, before we went to Ole Miss. And so, there's a lot of really good players in that league and good coaches in that league, and it's really good football. So, to be able to move to that position, and as we've talked about in the past, his ability to change that culture there and both places, Eastern Illinois and South Alabama defensively and create a standard on that side of the ball. And we just talked so much, and like I said, he was the person that I, which bounced ideas off of, and it was back and forth both ways and things that we were doing things. So very, we're kind of aligned, but still you haven't worked together with me calling it and him as an assistant. So last year I thought was a great year to work together and to really kind of create for him to get a feel for, how I wanted things done. And there's some things that we do that he really liked that we had changed and adjusted and adapted over the last few years before I, got here. And so, and then he brought some things that are a little bit unique and different that we hadn't been doing, and so, and I, gave him the authority to be able to, make some of those adjustments. And I intentionally, when we got into spring football, I did not sit in on any of the defensive staff meetings. Okay, as they were planning and organizing, and I felt there was two reasons for that. Number one, I wanted to be with the offense and be with Kalen and our offensive staff, and just to listen in and hear everything to help me, get a good feel for, his teaching style and coaching style and the things that we'd be doing on that side of the ball. And then I wanted the defensive coaches to look to Kane, okay, and not look to me if there was a question, because you're kind of always, when you go through and you get ready for, spring ball, you're always kind of hashing through things and we're going to make this adjustment, that adjustment. And sometimes you got to work through it. And I didn't want them to look to me. They needed to look to him and let him answer the questions and let him solve the technique discussions and all the things that happen behind closed doors. And sometimes you go through and, hey, I like doing it this way, and I like it this way, and this is why. And you kind of, sometimes you have good, healthy exchanges. But I didn't want to be a part of those and then what I would do is I would debrief with him and he would keep me up to speed on what we were doing. And then once I felt like that he had kind of established himself as the new leader of the defense, then I'd come back in there and sit in. And then I've sat in quite a bit since that time. And so, but I just feel like that was necessary in the process of helping him, because it's always, when you come in brand new, it's one thing, but when you come in, and I've done it, so, I've done both, where you're an assistant, you get elevated, or you become a guy that's coming in brand new. And I just think when you're an assistant that gets elevated, there's a transition time for them to look to you in a new role of being the leader of the defense, and even with the players and all the things that he did. So I just kind of let him take it and put his stamp on it. And so, that to me is why it's created confidence for a lot of different areas. And I trust him and I believe in him. And I think that he's going to do a great job.
Excuse me. Next, the guy you brought to Big Ten Media Day, and he's probably not always had the career that he wanted, injuries and things like that. He's been more than the average football player. Just what do you think that's kind of contributed to making the player and the person he is today, and just how important is he in that offense as a leader, as a fifth-year player?
Yeah, first of all, I think that and we've done a big study on the word grit. It's our one word for 2019, and the timing of it is probably perfect. Whereas program and everything that we've been fighting to do, but one big component of grit is you have to overcome adversity. You have to learn to fight through tough times. And so we look for that in recruits, say, what's that look like? And well, whether it's a home situation or an injury or whatever happens. And if you don't have those, it's hard to, learn the same lessons in life. And we all have experienced it, that tough times cause us to really dig deep, reflect, decide what really matters to us. And we got to really push through. And when you tear your ACL, that the process of recovery from an ACL injury is a long, difficult process. And I've often seen guys get broken by it, or they come back better than they ever were before. And so I just think that he's a fifth-year guy. He's been around here a long time. He's seen a lot of things. He's been some highs, been some disappointments, been some frustrations. You work your tail off all year long, and then the opening play of the first game of the season, you get hurt. And then you're out for a whole year. And I think those are hard things. But to see how he responded to that. It's a powerful thing. It is. And that's how, and I believe that grit can be developed. There's certain qualities that people have that are more inclined to be that way. But I think that's what he's experienced, and the perseverance and just just noticing him, he as a senior, and we have several seniors that are this same way, is that they've been here enough. They've been so close. They've been right there on that verge that they're like, I'm going to make sure it changes on my watch, that this is my last chance to be a part of this program. And I'm going to make sure that it's right. I'm not going to sit back, and I made a really strong push this spring with our leadership guys. And I was definitely targeting Nick in this because he's an awesome individual, but he's a little quiet, and we've had some really good players here recently that are great young men and they're good players, but they were too quiet. We need, and I made the statement that leading by example is not leadership. It does not get the job done. I said, how would you guys feel if I never spoke and I tried to lead this football team? How would that work? Well, it wouldn't. It's obvious. Okay. You have to speak to lead. Okay. Now, because I told him, I said, leading by example is just doing your job. And when I made that statement, several of those guys were like, Coach, I'd never thought of it like that before. And I even used some examples of some previous players that, man, I love these guys. And they did all these great things, but they never talked. And they didn't want to confront. They didn't want to say anything to their teammates. And so, when things weren't the way they needed to be. And then you have regrets about, I get to the end of the year and we're right there again. And so I just feel like he's one of those guys and that he's like, Coach, that resonated with him, and he kind of got it, and so he's been way more verbal. And I don't think he would probably rather not be. I think he would rather just be a little more quiet, do my thing and be great over here. And he works his tail off and he's poised and positioned to have a great season. And that's what we expect. But I think he's been challenged to bring guys with him, and that's a big part, not just take care of me, but also lead, not just by example. Okay. That's great. That's awesome. But that's just doing your job. If you're going to truly be a leader on this football team, you've got to step up. You got to confront your teammates. You got to encourage your teammates. You got to be in such great shape that when we're busting our tail, I got to be able to communicate when I am fatigued and tired, which is what happens in a football game. And so that's easy to say until you're out there busting your tail and you can't even hardly breathe. How are you supposed to talk, and so that's about being in phenomenal shape. When you get to that point, then you can communicate when you're fatigued because you're in great shape. So you're not just taking care of yourself. You're also encouraging, challenging, bring guys along with you and whatever they might need. They might need butt chewing. They might need encouragement. They might need a hug. They might need kicking the tail, whatever they need. We need seniors to own that. And that to me is kind of defines what he's become. And it's got to continue. I want to see it through fall camp and I want him to be able to keep growing because I think he's the guy that has the physical talent to be a special player. He's long, he can run, and I want to see him just go attack that football, and then attack the leadership piece in the locker room, on the field, after practice, before practice, all the little things we really do. So that to me is what I see from Nick, and that's how I've challenged him, and that's how we've talked behind the scenes, and he's responded. So that's where I just feel like that I've seen that more and more out of this group than I have anybody, any groups we've had since, and I think there's a lot of reasons for it. But I just think that I'm really excited about, the next step for him as he takes on a leadership role.
Tom, and then John.
First off, you've been a head coach for a few years. Have you gotten to more of a comfort level in regards to like when to defer to coordinators and when to step in with meetings or on the field and that? Is that role more comfortable for you now?
It is. There's no question. And I think once again, it kind of goes back to, what I said earlier, when you come in new, it feels a certain way. When you're promoted within the staff, it feels a little different. And so I think it's taken time, especially as I, transitioned even this past off season from being the coordinator to being, just the head coach and not calling the defense. And so that also has created more of a comfort level to be able to move in and out of areas and be able to, just truly be in that role and not try to, be over here doing this with the defense. And so I just think that, this is, year 3 going into being the head coach, year 4 being here, knowing the program and the people here. And so definitely a comfort level. You can go to Big Ten Media Day, felt different this year, felt better. I was so nervous the first year. I don't think I really had a chance to really enjoy it, and so, but then year 2 was better. And then this past year was the best one. And I felt the most comfortable. And I just think that's what time does, and so, but I want to do a great job of leading this football team and being able to exert, and I just pray for wisdom to know when to say what, when do you step into a meeting? When do you have the wisdom to not? When you allow a coordinator to, handle a situation, or when should you step in and insert yourself, whether it's with a player, with a coach, or whatever. So that's just experience and time, and I want to be doing a great job of that and be a great leader.
You talked about King, obviously his leadership style. Kalen, what about him as a leader? How would you describe him?
Well, first of all, I think there's a lot of confidence that he brings with him. It's kind of a quiet confidence, that I kind of have observed. He understands exactly what he wants, and there's a phrase that I was given years ago by a coach I highly respect and worked with, and that it says conviction-driven leadership is based off a vision of perfection. When you know what it's supposed to look like, you lead with confidence. And I feel like that's how I approach defensively. And that's the way that I wanted to lead defensively. And when things weren't right, you got the confidence, just like I talked about the player with Nick, you got the courage and confidence to step up and verbally say something. It's no different as a coach. And so that's how I've said in all the meetings I watch him practice. There's just a tremendous confidence, and he understands all the positions. And I believe he can coach them all. He can coach the O-line, he can coach receivers, he can coach running backs, he can coach quarterbacks, which he does, tight ends. And that's what you need. Not every coordinator leads that way. Sometimes it's a little more of a, everybody kind of does their thing. He doesn't tell them, he doesn't, I don't think he's micromanages in any way, but I'm just saying he has that confidence to know this is exactly what I'm looking for. And we sit through and you talk to his coaches, and there's different techniques and different ways of doing things. And I've seen him do a great job of meshing the things that we've done here. Because we've done some good things on offense in the past. We just got to get better, and so to be able to address those areas that you need to focus on. And I specifically said, hey, come in here and put in your offense. I just wanted him to be able to teach everybody, and that's, he came in here as I did and did not have any assistance. I told sometimes when you hire coaches and you hire coordinators, they like bringing in their guys, and I'm just like, well, these are my guys. These are our guys, so these are the coaches that coach here, and I believe in them, and I'm not replacing any of them because I believe in them. And so I just appreciate he came in here, and he already knew a couple of them, but not that well. One more than others, but some guys he didn't know at all. But to come in here and that takes it takes some humility. It also takes confidence to be able to do that. And I think that's what I see from him, and I think it exudes to our players. And just a creative mind, a guy that knows he kind of can see what he wants to build, and the whole big, that's just got the big picture view of it, but also has the confidence to teach the techniques and say, hey, is this the best way to do it? And then be able to have those conversations with coaches. And at the end of the day, get it the way you want it. And that's why I always tell, hey, you get what you want. When you tell me what you need, and I want to support you in that way. And so I like that about him, and I think that he just want him to be himself, and he's a very, cerebral guy and has a really good mind. He's very smart, and that's what you have to have. You got to manage a lot of things, and so I just think that, but the thing that just kind of sticks out to me is just that quiet confidence of this is what I want. This is what I see. This is how it's supposed to look. And we're not going to, settle for anything less. And so it's been a very comprehensive and very, involved off season. We've done more in our player practices, more install, more things we've done on that side of the ball since I've been here. And I think we'll reap the benefits of that here in fall camp. Appreciate you guys. Have a great day. Elio.
That was Tom Allen, Indiana head football coach, coming to you from Memorial Stadium for today's Indiana Football Media Day. We'll be back with more Indiana Sports Beat from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios right after this. Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat here from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, of course, Memorial Stadium today. Now Indiana Football Media Day going on, and now let's get straight to the days as Kalen DeBoer, offensive coordinator for Indiana, is up on the podium now.
I think every move, I've probably become more efficient in adjusting, and really you kind of prioritize what you think fits, the personnel that are here. And then I think there's a great balance, and Coach Allen kind of alluded to it. There's a great balance of still doing some of the things that they did well before you got here. And, there's some great schemes and great things that were executed well, the last few years. And so, balancing that, along with bringing in, your style, I just think over the past, few years have become more efficient in that. And, my hat's off to the staff that, I get the chance to work with every day. I mean, they're experts. I consider myself a lifelong learner. And so I just enjoy sitting in the room and kind of hearing, the way they do things, have done things throughout their careers. And I just think that, I'd like Coach said, I know what I like, but doesn't always mean it's the perfect way that fits, who we are right now and the personnel that we have.
I know we were in Indiana 247 Sports. Coach, you got to see obviously Peyton Jack team stuff in the spring. How, I guess, got excited to see Michael now and kind of bolts and more live.
Yeah.
See how he kind of adjusted.
Yeah. That's the case for a few guys, not just Michael, Wap at receiver and, Cole Guest at running back. None of those guys really took many team reps, and Michael in particular didn't take any. And so, just having him have a chance to go through the summer, through their team activities, I'm expecting, that he's taken another step or two, and now he can be full-fledged in the offense along with the other quarterbacks. And, I'm excited to get on the field tomorrow and just see where we're at, and what the guys, not just the quarterbacks, but the rest of the offense has accomplished and how much more comfortable they are from the 15th practice we had in the spring. So the guys have been working extremely hard. I know that they're buying into it, and in the end, we need to create the attitude. We need to create the attitude as an offense. You don't install that; you create it. It isn't a play that installs that you install that gets the attitude. It's the mindset of the guys and what they do with the offense that we install that creates the attitude. So I'm excited about what Mike's going to do here this fall.
Jim Coyle, Indiana Sports Beat. Coach, in the last couple of years, the offense has been very close, but it seems like it's just short. Are you confident that all the pieces are in place for this offense to be as successful as it can be?
Yeah, I think there's just a lot of variables that happen throughout the years, and you got, some experienced offensive linemen you kind of hang your hat on. You got some skill guys that are coming back, and you can put 5 guys out there that have played some football around the quarterback. So, I think, every year you kind of have your own adjustments and spin. And even if I was here this year and next year, you might tweak a few things just to fit who you are and what you do well. And so the pieces are here. I watched the guys this spring and just continued to went back after the spring and the summer, watched last year's, games again. You just have a good feeling that, another year of experience underneath all of these guys' belt, and a few tweaks here and there, and, we can be off and rolling.
Zach Osterman, Indianapolis Star. I guess kind of along those lines, as you studied what Indiana did last season offensively and where some different guys fit, are there areas that you can kind of pinpoint and say, I think in my scheme, or as guys get older, whatever, get a little bit more out of there, maybe the run game, tight end usage, things like that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think, hopefully our tight ends, and they're all still young, but they're all now a year older too. And so I think they're capable of doing the things that I like to do. And the tight end's been a heavy involvement in the offense. It isn't always receiving yards, but a lot of times it is. It's just having guys that understand, the blocking schemes, the protections, the routes. There's a lot that goes into that position, much like a quarterback. And the tight end, I think, is a position that needs to continue to grow. And then, Stevie really ended up carrying the load last year, kind of more out of necessity. Hopefully we can get multiple backs out there at a time because we do have a strong running back position that all is a year older. And again, that position, no seniors in that group. So, just the reps that those guys have taken in their careers, hopefully the experiences that they have will help them, all be better this year. And I think it will, because I know their heart and minds are all in the right spot. And, you just go right down the line. Every position group's kind of that way. The receiving core, 2 of the top 3 receivers from last year returning, and I think just probably more than anything is having that continuity to where you can have a go-to guy at the critical moments or go-to guys. So a coverage can't roll to a specific person in the critical moments when you need to move the chains, when you're in the red zone or when the game's on the line. So, and then there's other receivers I know that are looking forward to their opportunity, that have had, their moments here or, about to have their moments.
Hey, Kevin. Coach Pete DePernier, IUHoosiers.com. 2-part question. One, how do you assess the way in terms of tempo you want to vary it or up tempo? How up tempo will you be? And second, how big a part will the running backs be in receiving?
Yeah, I think the second part, the running backs, I hope, are very involved in the receiving game. And, you always got to protect first. But if they're a threat to have the ball in their hands and more than just a way of handing it to them, I just think that, those are some of your best athletes that you have on the football team, not just here, but in a lot of programs. And so they're explosive kids. And I think they've really seen that, they're going to get their touches if they run their routes right and can gel with the quarterback and understand their assignments and the timing. And then the tempo part, this spring we were completely focused on execution. Executing the plays because in the end they're still going to come down to a third downs where there is no tempo, to where you have to execute. The defense got lined up, you made a substitution, and so the official's holding the ball, and so you have to execute that play. And so as we're installing the offense, we focused on the execution. Now, varying, you use the word vary, I think it's a great word. Having the ability to vary the tempos, I think, is critical. So a defense just can't get into a pattern or a routine or a rhythm. And to me, that's what offense is all about. It's about the rhythm, and then having the ability to speed it up and throw something on them when the right time, occurs. Maybe they're on their heels, or, you just, there's a great flow. And a lot of times those play calls are by the situation, the scenario that's happening. But I think having the ability, and we will have that ability to play faster, and I know that the guys are very comfortable with that. I think as the spring went along, you saw that, the base concepts that we were running, they were executing them faster and getting lined up in the formations quicker and making the little adjustments and stuff. They were much more efficient in doing it. So I'm excited to take that to the next level. We were very, simple, I think, this spring. Showed those guys, in the spring, and then we have some opportunities to meet with them a little bit in the summer. What is still out there that we will do, and so there'll be some installs, around 4 and 5 where there's some things that they haven't done yet. And so that's something that they've seen and they kind of understand, but they haven't executed. So the first 3 practices I would expect to be pretty smooth and things that they're very comfortable with.
Kevin, Kevin Brockway, CNH, the ability to make big throws downfield, how much of a premium will that be placed on when you're determining a starting point?
Yeah. I think it's important. It's important to, I think less than 5% of drives last year that were touchdowns, didn't have an explosive play, and so you need to have explosive plays. And a lot of times what explosive plays to me are is a matter of timing and accuracy, and so I think all our quarterbacks have the ability to throw the ball down the field far enough as long as they're throwing on time. And I think that's the thing, as they go through their progressions, just make sure we're hitting that progression to the deep ball at the right time. And, I think those guys have kind of understand some of our core concepts and have been working on it this summer. And we were, successful at times this spring doing it as well. So we'll continue to polish those up and expand on the offense and the opportunities that we can have to throw the ball down the field. And I do think that, that's very important. You can't just throw it out there. And you want to scare the defense. You want it to go. You want it to be a touchdown. You want it to be a big play. No doubt.
Coach, you mentioned that you like to kind of match what you're doing to the personnel you're doing
Mm-hmm.
it with. As you go into August here now with 3 quarterbacks with a variety of strengths and different strengths and weaknesses, how does that handle what you want to try to do this month?
Yeah, that's probably the hardest thing. When you can pretty much lock arms with a quarterback and you know who that person is going in, and you can develop everything you do around them and talk through every scenario. You can do it with all the quarterbacks as a whole, but until that person's in that situation, it's really hard to simulate and hard for them to kind of grasp really what's going to happen and how it's going to go down. And so, it's one of the tougher things that we'll have to handle during fall camp. But it's what it is, and we're gonna make the most of it. And I think all 3 quarterbacks are they're very intelligent guys, and they pick things up quickly. It comes natural to them. They're instinctive, and so it's just a matter of them hearing from me when those situations come up, how I want them to handle it.
Matt?
Kind of off that question, Coach. When you have this competition, kind of what's your timetable for when you'd like to have it over so that you can, like you said, lock your arms with that guy and start focusing on, game plan and season and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I hope, it presents itself to where, but I don't feel like you can really put a timetable on it. I've had times where it's gone into the season, 3-4 weeks, you hit the conference, and then you got to make your decision. But, you hope it doesn't happen that way. But, probably 3 of the last 4 years has been around. I mean, I've had this type of situation, and every scenario it's a little different. So I know it's going to be competitive. I know that the guys, the one thing that's it's really cool about being around this group is they all respect each other so much. In fact, sometimes they get concerned about, as they're competitive and trying to win over the team and things like that, they don't want to step on the other guy's toes. And, we've had those conversations, in the position room and just understand that, hey, everyone wants this to be their team, and everyone's got to do their part, and Coach Allen's, talked about being vocal. I've really emphasized that, getting out of their comfort zone to try to show that, hey, I see you guys, I see myself in the starting quarterback role as they go through their practices and their workouts. But they all respect each other so much. You can tell. And, I'm not sure. I don't think they really hang out together necessarily every day, away from the facilities, but, they're all in it together, and they want our team, I think, in the end to be successful. And that's what they care about the most.
Last one, Zach.
This is kind of a bigger picture question, but you talked about being in that process a lot over your career. Do you feel like it's more common, maybe having, whether it's young guys coming in more prepared to college, be able to challenge older guys, but just maybe it's more common that you get more of that competition and it's a little bit less of a regimented kind of by seniority thing at quarterback than it used to be?
Seems like it. I don't have really a great answer for you, to be honest, because I was just thinking through the scenarios as you were talking, and every scenario happened in a different way. A guy transfers in, a younger player is progression. His progression through his career is becoming better, greater, and he's developing. So it isn't like there has been, some guys just it was their time, and so I can't really give you a great answer on that. Every scenario I think has been different from what I've experienced over the years.
Thanks, Kalen.
You bet.
Thank you.
This segment of Indiana Sports Beat with Jim Coyle is brought to you by Sweetland Waste Removal and Recycling, a homegrown company serving Southern Indiana since 1995. Let John Sweetland and Sweetland Waste Removal take care of your waste removal and recycling needs. 812-944-5642. Now let's get back to Indiana Sports Beat with Jim Coyle. Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat, of course, coming to you from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios at Memorial Stadium today for Indiana Football Media Day. Let's get back to
it. He's one of my best friends in the world. I trust him, and just to be able to do that with those guys is really fun. Swarm D is ready to go. Our Swarm D culture and what we believe here, I think we're in a really good place. we believe that after the responsibility of stopping the offense, whether it be run or pass, is placed on all 11 shoulders of the defense. And I think right now, anybody that walks out on that field and represents the Swarm D believes that purpose when they walk out there. And I think that's really important. I love our coaches and players, the guys that I get to work with in the meeting room, and Mark Hagan, Brandon Shelby, and Casey Teagarden do a phenomenal job. We've built trust with one another. That trust is earned. It's not just something that happens when you walk in the door, but really excited about just the group that we have and the confidence we have in one another. As coaches, our responsibility are to capture the thoughts and inspire the actions of our players, and I think we've done that to this point. All right. Our players, their responsibility to this defense, the Swarm defense, is we want to create an environment where unique individuals care more about the success of others than they do themselves. And I think when you do that, we all accomplish our goals both individually and collectively. I think we're well on our way to doing those things. If you review from spring and summer, I think we're ahead of where we are. Very youthful experience. We do have experience, but it is a youthful group. I think that's a good thing because we're going to have these guys for the next few years. That's a very exciting piece as Tom has built this place for the long haul. I think it puts us ahead for where we want to go in terms of our fall camp installation. We'll get about 90% of our installation done in the first 5 days of practice just because of what our guys have been able to accomplish from the spring and into the summertime, which is pretty exciting for us to be able to get that in. And that way we just rep the things that we're going to do all season long, and those won't change. In terms of the culture of our defense, all right, we believe in confidence and we believe in swagger, all right, and we believe in leaning into one another because that's how you handle the adversities that this conference brings week in and week out. And I think we're prepared to do that. Our fall emphasis, the three things that we always talk about in our defense, we will emphasize takeaways, tackling, and effort, along with the fourth one this fall will be communication. All right, we've got to be great communicators out there on that field. I hope when you guys come out to practice, you see us, all right, you will be able to hear it will be loud on the defensive side of the football every single snap, all right? And if not, then that's something you need to ask me about because I'm not holding them accountable for what I said I was going to do, okay? Tom Allen's made no bones about it that this place, when he took over here 3 years ago as a defensive coordinator and then head coach, that we wanted to be a top 25 defense. We've accomplished a lot of those goals over the last 3 years. I think we were right outside in total defense, inside the top 25 in third down defense, first down defense, tackles for loss, and takeaways. Pretty amazing accomplishment considering what he's been able to do in 3 years. But there's still things left out there. We want to be a top 25 scoring defense, and that's what our goal and our ability is. Rushing defense and red zone defense, those are things that have not been accomplished in a number of years here, and that is the goal for us. And then the last thing, defensively, I think overall we want to change the outcome of close games. And that's what we want to be responsible for. We want to put that on our shoulders. That's a team effort, but we have to do our job in that regard. So excited to get going for this year. Questions?
Coach John talked about you at GA at Ole Miss and went straight from GA to be and see at Eastern Illinois.
Yeah.
How tough is that, and how much does that kind of prepare you, going forward, going from not even being a position coach, now you're leading an entire defense?
Yeah, I mean, it was a good question because at 26 years old, I thought I had just about all the answers and I was ready to go. I think as I reflect back on that, I was ready to a point to be a defensive coordinator at that point. And part of that was just spending time in this system. When you grow up in this system, it doesn't change. You don't go from one defensive system to another. The terminology, all those things are just built into who you become. You know what I mean? And so that learning curve of always being around this system under my dad, and then you're around good coaches. I thought the best thing that my father did to graduate assistants is he always treated us like full-time coaches. So my last year at Ole Miss, I got to coach a position. I was a full-time guy. I was got to game plan. You know what I mean? I was heard. You know what I mean? And that's what I tried to do with our graduate assistants because they are an extension of us in terms of on-field coaches, and they themselves can do the same thing.
In terms of your approach, how aggressive do you want to play defense, and including how much do you want to blitz?
Well, I work for Tom Allen, so I'll play pretty aggressive defensively, or I won't have my job. So I think we've made no bones about it. We are aggressive attacking defense. I think you have to be so intentional about about creating negative plays for the offense. I'm blanking here on the stat where I got this from, but there was a team that did a study this offseason. It was like if you create one negative play in a drive, you have a 75% chance of holding them to a field goal or less, or getting off the field. And so you talk about creating one negative play in an entire drive. Those odds, we've got to be able to do those things. At the same time, we have to be very intentional about limiting the opponent's big plays. Notice I didn't say eliminating, right? Because they're going to hit a 15-yard comeback every now and then, right? When you're an aggressive attacking defense, because your corners are playing over the top, right? We can't get frustrated that is with players, coaches, fan base, right? We got to understand what we're trying to do, that every now and then they're going to hit a play. We just can't give up the big plays for touchdowns and create enough negative plays of our own.
I guess just how much do you talk to your dad, if at all, really? And you talk about growing up in that system, always kind of carrying it with you to different places you've been. Now you're a defensive coordinator in the Big Ten. Just Is it something where you bounce ideas off him fairly often? Is it something where maybe you want to kind of see things through your own lens?
Yeah, I mean, I talk to my dad a whole lot right now, but mainly it's about fishing, his grandsons, and taking care of my house. So, because those are the things that he cares about right now. So that being said, he will come in fall camp. He'll spend about 3 or 4 days with us. He'll give me a full analysis of where he thinks that we are from a personnel standpoint and just where we are schematically, which will be really exciting. We'll wait probably a week into camp and then bring him in for about 3 or 4 practices there. During the season, I feel like, it's kind of like Mother Bird that you go and flap your wings and you do your thing. I talked to, when Tom and I both left to be defensive coordinators, him and I talked a ton in the off season. We would talk on Thursday and Friday nights, but it's kind of one of those deals that once you get into the grind, you're bunkered down with the people that you're here with. And I feel like we have enough pieces in place here that, I just communicate with our guys for the most part during the season.
Coach, with better depth at all 3 levels now, how much does that play into allowing you to be even more aggressive with pressure guys and taking that approach that you're going to play a lot of guys to keep everybody fresh?
Yeah, you got to be careful in how you manage that, right? Because when you play more players, that means that you have to disseminate the reps among those players to get them ready for a season, right? In doing that, you got to make sure that we're not doing too much so that each player gets the reps that are actually going to transfer over to game day. So that being said, we want to be multiple and aggressive, but I think we have spent countless hours this offseason making sure that we are simple enough that our players can go execute, and yet multiple in the way that we show ourselves, all right, to an offense, and the way we present ourselves to an offense. So there's a fine line there, but I do think we can take advantage of that and being aggressive, but at the same time, you got to make sure all those reps are being disseminated properly.
John Blount, Herald Times. Tom's talking about not sitting in some of those meetings during the spring.
Mm-hmm.
How much did that help you take a leadership role?
Well, I think Tom, being a defensive coordinator himself, he knows how important it is to build that camaraderie in a staff, right? Especially when he was the defensive coordinator previously, right? Those guys, he's a defensive coordinator and their head coach. So it was important that we felt, and that was something that we talked about, and I totally value what he was able to do, is we were able to build that camaraderie and that chemistry in the room without him. Okay, because like it or not, when the head coach walks in the door, you just get a little bit tighter. You know what I mean? And so for us to kind of say, this is what we want to do, and then for me to be able to go to him and say, listen, this is what we're thinking. I want to keep you updated in this and that. So it was just, it's all about communication at the end of the day. And I thought him and I had great communication, but he also allowed me to build that chemistry with the defensive staff. And that is probably paying off as big as anything going into this season. All right. Thanks, guys.
Coach Hearn and Coach Phil, they're here already.
Hello, everybody. Jim Coyle from Indiana Sports Beat. When I'm not covering the Hoosiers, you can find me at Bubba's 33 in Clarksville, located on the northeast corner of I-65 at Veterans Parkway. Bubba's 33 has hand-tossed pizzas, bold burgers and ice cold beer from a select list of local craft brewers. An incredible food selection, all made fresh daily. Whether you're meeting the team for that post-win meal in the family dining area or meeting friends for happy hour to watch the game on one of Bubba's 50 TVs. Bubba's 33 in Clarksville. Pizza, burgers, beer.
We all want a winning smile for those championship photos, and that's exactly what you will get at Reynolds Family Dentistry in Sellersburg. Reynolds Family Dentistry has been serving the dental needs of Hoosier families for over 30 years. Let Doctors Roger and Jay Reynolds take care of your family. Just off of I-65 at 809 South Indiana Avenue in Sellersburg. Call 812-246-3368. That's Reynolds Family Dentistry, 812-246-3368.
Now that warm weather has arrived, it's time to hit the links, and there's no better place than the golf club at Eagle Point in Bloomington. Voted best golf course by the readers of the Bloomington Herald-Times, the golf club at Eagle Point is under new ownership, has new fairways and bunkers, and it's open to the public. When the round's over, there's cold beer and a full menu at the Eagle Point Pub and Bistro. Call 812-824-1100 to make a tee time. That's 812-824-1100. The golf club at Eagle Point in Bloomington.
This is A.J. Moyer.
This is Dan Dockett.
Hey, this is Michael Lord, former Indiana basketball player.
This is Indiana football coach Tom Allen.
This is Jim Coyle with the Indiana Sports Beat. You can always like and follow us on Facebook. Always follow the show rebroadcast on iTunes, Google Play, iHeartRadio, Spotify. TheDailyHoosier.com is a great place to sign up for each and every day, or, of course, on 97.7 The Ref in Evansville. For the best recycling and waste removal service, turn to the area's leader, Sweetland Waste Removal and Recycling, a homegrown company serving southern Indiana since 1995. Sweetland Waste Removal and Recycling serves Floyd, Clark, Harrison, and Washington counties. For excellent service and peace of mind, call Sweetland Waste Removal and Recycling today at 812-944-5642. That's 812-944-5642. Keep life sweet with Sweetland Waste Removal and Recycling.
This is former Indiana basketball player Greg Green. Keep up with the Hoosiers on the Indiana Sports Beat with Jim Coyle.
This hour is brought to you by Sweetland Waste and Removal Service, a homegrown company serving southern Indiana since 1995.
Well, we're coming to your city. Gonna play our guitars and sing you a country song. We'll all be flying higher than a jetliner. And if you want a little bang in your yin yang, come along.
And welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat. Thanks a lot for taking us along wherever you're going, wherever you may be headed. We appreciate you. Taking Indiana Sports Beat along for the ride. Jim Coyle with you here as always. Jake's at the wheel, keeping things on the track for us as we come to you from the golf club at Eagle Point Studios, moved to Memorial Stadium for today's IU Football Media Day. You heard earlier Tom Allen speaking on today on Media Day. As also you were able to hear Kalen DeBoer, the offensive coordinator, as well as Kane Womack, the defensive coordinator for Indiana. We'll have a lot of that more tomorrow in the upcoming days. We'll get more of that for you. But also we're meeting with the individual players today, so we'll have all kinds of a sound for you coming up after this. But when we get to that, also on the program today, man, I could not be any more jacked. Pat Graham, good friend of mine. We both went to high school at Floyd Central. One of the greatest pure shooters, if not the greatest pure shooter in the history of IU basketball. Looking so forward to having Pat on. He's just great. Says what he thinks, but he sure follows the Hoosiers, and he'll tell you what he thinks about Indiana right now, and looking forward to that. Also, we've got a quick conversation coming up with Scott Agnes. Of course, he joins us each week. We're going to cut that a little short as Indiana Football Media Day is kind of taken over today as we're coming to you from Memorial Stadium, and we'll have more of that coming up tomorrow. Also on the program tomorrow, Tom Brew is going to join us from the Maven Sports Illustrated platform. That just kicked off. Looking forward to talking to Tom again, and also our good buddy Todd Leary will join us as well. So a lot going on, most of it football today as far as IU Football Media Day. You got to hear from Tom Allen. Nothing was said that was, of course, unexpected. There's nothing new in the area of the quarterback. We're not going to know that until a week before the game with Ball State on August 31st. He said that on the show here back at the media days for the Big Ten, and that's the absolute truth. Anybody that thinks otherwise is just ill-informed, because those three quarterbacks have not been healthy and practicing at the same time ever here together. So Tuttle is a transfer coming in from Utah, and once he got here, though, he got sick and was not able to play in the spring game. Of course, Michael Penix has been rehabbing the knee that the ACL that he hurt back in the Penn State game last year. So he wasn't he was available for spring ball, but he just went through the motions, kind of was non-contact, anything like that. So there was not a time where all three of these quarterbacks have gone head-to-head. That will happen starting tomorrow. Fall camp opens for IU football, and that three-man competition will get underway, and it will continue to, like I said, about a week before opening kickoff, which is August 31st up at Lucas Oil Stadium in Indianapolis, as the Hoosiers will take on the Ball State Cardinals then. But that's when we'll find out who the quarterback's going to be. And I'm telling you that neither Tom Allen or Kalen DeBoer, they don't have one picked. Peyton Ramsey is the incumbent, so he's the starter until he is overtaken, and that's just how it's going to be. And I don't even have a guess. I mean, I can guess either Penix or Tuttle, because I definitely think that that's where it's going to go. Peyton Ramsey has done a nice job, but there's a reason that they couldn't get over the hump last year. There are things that they had limits. They couldn't get the ball downfield. They couldn't stretch the defense, and that's going to have to happen, or Indiana's going to end up 5-7 again, and I don't expect that to happen. So I do think that either Michael Penix or Jack Tuttle is going to be the starting quarterback, but between those two, I can't tell you. They're both great talents. Penix has an arm like a cannon. He can throw it from here to Indianapolis. Jack Tuttle is a little more of a pro stock quarterback, but there's not a lot of difference. Neither one of these guys are looked at as what you'd call an Antoine Randall type quarterback, a dual threat quarterback. But they are both capable of getting the ball down the field, and that is something that Indiana missed desperately last year, and we'll hopefully see that gets rectified. But we're looking forward to a great show today, continuing, as we've already had a great show with the opening session of Indiana Football Media Days. Tom Allen and Kane Womack and Kalen DeBoer. Pat Graham's going to join us, like I said. Man, I'm looking forward to Pat coming on. Good friend of Todd Leary's as well. Todd is with us each and every Friday, so those guys are down there living in Evansville and just being goofy together a little bit. But looking forward to talking to Pat. And Scott Agnes is going to join us here, and I think may have Scott on the line there. Looks like a Scott. And Scott Agnes joins us now here on Indiana Sports Beat, as he does each and every week. Scott, how are you doing, brother?
Good morning. Good to be on with you. Can't believe football season is really already here.
It's upon us. We're here at Bloomington for IU Football Media Day today. So, yeah, it's here. Fall camp starts tomorrow. I know the Colts have already been in action. A lot going on up there in Indy. So, it's here, man, and I'm excited. I'm ready for some football.
Yeah, I'd like another month. Give me another month, then I'll be there, right there with you. But it has been crazy just to follow, of course, the developments of the Colts this week being their first week, and then, of course, Andrew Luck now being sidelined with a casual calf injury now.
Yeah, I'll see. Hope that thing doesn't linger, man. That seems to have been too much of a common denominator the last few years, and injuries to Mr. Luck. But hopefully he'll get past all that. Did you make it through the cancellation of the Cardi B concert? I know that had to be horribly disappointing to you.
It was funny. So I walked outside, and I'm right downtown, right by it. and I just see these fans that you would have thought they were told Christmas was canceled. It was crazy, Jim. Like, they were crying. Some were mad they didn't get their, they're like, I just drove in my hotel room. What are you going to do now? But in all, it turned out it was ultimately because of a potential threat. So it wasn't necessarily to say the artist not making it here or being sick or something. It was a potential threat to the artist. And so I guess they agreed to postpone it here. But that left a lot of fans unhappy on a perfect Tuesday night here in Indianapolis.
I bet. I'm sure there were a lot of people disappointed. I mean, I'm laughing at it, but I understand, especially if there were kids that their parents brought in. It does kind of suck, man. I would sure hate to have driven my daughter like an hour and a half to see that and for that to happen. But it's just weird how things work out, man.
Yeah, no, that would be tough. It would be no issue for me, or if you lived within a half an hour, let's say. Although I will say there's all kinds of traffic downtown Indianapolis and trying to get to the airport and such. So, yeah, that would be the frustrating part, is if you invested, a long drive or a hotel room in addition to these concert tickets, because we all know those aren't cheap like they used to be.
No. A lot of talk about LeBron. He got a little excited the other day when he with his son at his son's game, the alley-oop going in, and he was jumping on the court, losing his shoe, and just acting kind of foolish. And, you had people that took this side and that side, and I think it's kind of funny, but at the end of the day, I'm like, you know what? But if that was anybody else's dad, were they allowed to jump on the court like that? And then secondly, I'm thinking, let the kid have his moment. Stop making it about LeBron.
So I thought of a couple of things here, Jim. First of all, he told me we were officially in summer. The off season has arrived. If that's what our attention is for basketball league. It was the official start of my summer. So I appreciated that. I think it was Monday when that came in. So that was a clear indication to me. For me, it's not what a typical parent does, but then again, LeBron is no typical person or parent. And I like the fact that he's involved in his kid's life. And, and the one big comment that I took away was one of the guys on the team that's always around him. I think his name's Dior Johnson. He posted, hey, I haven't seen my dad in 4 years. I would give anything to see my dad at one of my games. So I was like, all right, end of debate. Let him do what he wants. He's probably, through Nike, funding this whole operation, this team, and supporting them in various ways we don't know about. Sure, it's not my style or what I would want to do or someone on my team, but I can't criticize them. Picture if another star showed up and all of a sudden was dunking in the line, or these 10-year-olds had access to one of the best players in the world. I think that's the bigger conversation than he jumped the layup line and dunked. You and me are not LeBron, so that he's very different. He is an exception, so I can excuse it.
Yeah, it's not, at the end of the day, I really don't even give a crap, to be honest with you. It's like, if that's
exactly
if that's my biggest thing going on that day, I'm in trouble, man. So I couldn't care less. Go at it, have fun, do whatever.
It's another thing if it's Billy in Beach Grove that's showing up his son and can't dunk and is throwing up threes. That's an issue. LeBron doing anything? If anything, it's giving them something to strive for and such, and to see what a guy like them can do and can make it to the NBA, those sorts of things. So
absolutely. And I saw the Pacers now. I saw that you had out the Pacers, the 20-man training camp roster appears to be set. They just had an agreement with, how do you say his name? Naz Mitrou-Long, the final player on that roster.
Yeah, Naz, I just shortened it Naz Long. Basically, he agreed to that two-way deal, so he's the final two-way deal. And unofficially, the training camp roster has been set. And now it's just the big questions entering camp, right, Jim? Is it's Victor's health. It's can Domas and Miles Turner make it work, sharing the 4 and 5 spot? And then also, how do the other parts come together? Because there's so many new pieces to the roster yet again. Yeah,
and in the college, there are 13 scholarship players on the roster. What is the pro teams carry? I don't remember. Is it 15?
So they carry 15, not including the two-way guys. That stretches to 17. They must have 12 players active on game night, and they can bring 20 players to training camp. So when I say their training camp roster is set, that's because they're already at 20 players.
And there's a couple of guys that are on two-way contracts, like you talked about, Brian Bowen and Naz Long, and those, of course, having to do with the NBA, going back and forth between the NBA and the G League, and then the Exhibit 10, C.J. Wilcox, Jakeem Grant, and Amita Brima. What's the difference between those two-way contracts and the Exhibit 10s?
Yeah, so an Exhibit 10 is basically a non-guaranteed contract to bring you to training camp. So it gives the team the right with when you assume they would waive them after training camp, then they would default back and be members of that team's G League squad, right? So if a player is waived by the Pacers, they revolt back to the Fort Wayne Mad Ants. And a two-way contract, much different, and it's for a higher caliber of player. A two-way guarantees a player at least $75,000. In Exhibit 10s, you can be guaranteed up to $50,000. Usually it's probably anywhere from $5,000 to say $20,000. But two ways, you're guaranteed $75,000. You can spend up to 45 days with the parent club, with the Pacers or the Utah Jazz or whatever the team may be. But the clock does not start until the G League training camp starts. So the first month and a half of the season really does not count against that clock at all. But that money can also be elevated even more depending on how many days of service that player spends with the parent club. And that two-way contract, the other big thing here, Jim, is if a big player goes off in the preseason but is only on Exhibit 10, he's free to sign with any club. However, if a two-way player guy goes off in the preseason, a random team, the Lakers couldn't swoop in and sign him, let's say. He would be under control of the Pacers, and they would have the opportunity to convert that into an NBA contract like they did with Edmund Sumner last year.
Well, the Pacers seem to have everything in place now before camp opens. They'll head in that direction. And then you're heading off on vacation. You won't be here for the next couple of weeks, but heading abroad, going across the pond.
Yeah, exactly right. You got to get away. And so after I saw the debate about nothing about LeBron, I feel clear for takeoff. So it'll be a good, nice couple of weeks away from basketball a little bit. It's very hard to do, I'll tell you.
Man, we appreciate you. I hope you have a great time, a safe trip. Enjoy your midsummer break, and we'll look forward to talking to you when you get back.
All right. Have a good one, Jim. Thanks.
Thank you, Scott Agnes from The Athletic. Make sure you find him right there, coverage of the Pacers for us. That's going to wrap it up for this segment. From the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, we'll be back with Pat Graham, former Indiana great, right here on Indiana Sports Beat, right after this.
I got a car that I bought, won't get me far, got a wish on a star. Tell me, Mom, I got everything I need. Almost, I got everything I need, almost, but I don't got you, and you're the thing I need the most.
Hello, everybody. Jim Coyle from Indiana Sports Beat. When I'm not covering the Hoosiers, you can find me at Bubba's 33 in Clarksville, located on the northeast corner of I-65 at Veterans Parkway. Bubba's 33 has hand-tossed pizzas, bold burgers, and ice-cold beer from a select list of local craft brewers. An incredible food selection, all made fresh daily. Whether you're meeting the team for that post-win meal in the family dining area or meeting friends for happy hour to watch the game on one of Bubba's 50 TVs. Bubba's 33 in Clarksville. Pizza, burgers, beer.
We all want a winning smile for those championship photos, and that's exactly what you will get at Reynolds Family Dentistry in Sellersburg. Reynolds Family Dentistry has been serving the dental needs of Hoosier families for over 30 years. Let Doctors Roger and Jay Reynolds take care of your family. Just off of I-65 at 809 South Indiana Avenue in Sellersburg. Call 812-246-3368. That's Reynolds Family Dentistry, 812-246-3368.
Now that warm weather has arrived, it's time to hit the links, and there's no better place than the Golf Club at Eagle Point in Bloomington. Voted best golf course by the readers of the Bloomington Herald-Times, the Golf Club at Eagle Point is under new ownership, has new fairways and bunkers, and it's open to the public. When the round's over, there's cold beer and a full menu at the Eagle Point Pub and Bistro. Call 812-824-1100 to make a tee time. That's 812-824-1100. The Golf Club at Eagle Point in Bloomington.
This is AJ Moye.
This is Dan Dockett.
Hey, this is Michael Lewis, former Indiana basketball player.
This is Indiana football coach Tom Allen.
This is Jim Coyle with the Indiana Sports Beat. You can always like and follow us on Facebook. Always follow the show rebroadcast on iTunes, Google Play, iHeartRadio, Spotify. TheDailyHoosier.com is a great place to sign up for each and every day. Or, of course, on 97.7 The Ref in Evansville. For the best recycling and waste removal service, turn to the area's leader, Sweetland Waste Removal and Recycling, a homegrown company serving southern Indiana since 1995. Sweetland Waste Removal and Recycling serves Floyd, Clark, Harrison, and Washington counties. For excellent service and peace of mind, call Sweetland Waste Removal and Recycling today at 812-944-5642. That's 812-944-5642. Keep life sweet with Sweetland Waste Removal and Recycling.
This is former Indiana basketball player Brian Evans, and you're listening to Indiana Sports Beat with Jim Coyle.
Today's guest is brought to you by Reynolds Family Dentistry of Sellersburg. You need $1 million smile for those championship photos, and that's exactly what you'll get with Reynolds Family Dentistry.
Oh, yeah. I believe that the whole world has got soul.
Welcome back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, Indiana Sports Beat. Jim Coyle with you as always. And I couldn't be happier to have one of my absolute favorite Bayou players of all time, a good friend from a long time ago, Pat Graham. Pat, how are you, brother?
Doing good. How are you?
I cannot complain. I'm talking to you, so that's a great thing. I haven't gotten to see you in quite a while, but a guy from we both went to Floyd Central High School, and Pat was probably the greatest player that ever came through there, and that's a long line of great players. And speaking of that, Southern Indiana used to always get they didn't get as much notoriety as the northern side of the state, but man, there are a lot of guys, just the southern part of the state, but even Floyd Central, man, there's a lot of great players that come from that way.
Yeah, it's, you know, I kind of, even back when that was always kind of the running joke that Southern Indiana got forgotten, this and that, and I never wanted to use an excuse or anything, but, you know, we still, even down here, I live now in Evansville, Indiana, and I said, you know, we always kind of laugh that we don't get the pub down here. I said, well, don't worry about it. I've lived it since I was, you know, in the 80s when I was at Floyd Central, so I guess it's just kind of a running joke, but yeah, there's some decent players in Southern Indiana. Always has been.
Of course, you mentioned you've been down in Evansville for quite a time, a family. You got a couple of kids. Your wife, who actually her father was my football coach in high school. A great time. But you've got a couple of kids now that are going up and going through what you went through playing high school basketball. What's that like as a father now? Because I know for me, high school still seems like it wasn't that long ago, but unfortunately it was. But you're getting to live it through your kids now. That's got to be fun.
It's maybe one of these days I'll be able to say I enjoyed it, but you know, I've always said watching sports, coaching sports, coaching your kids, and again, there's a hell of a lot of high school and even football and baseball coaches that's had to coach their kids, and even back when you and I were in high school and stuff, but it's not fun. I'll be honest with you, it's not as fun as it should be because, and I've always said this, it's a lot easier playing than coaching. And then when you have a son out there also, or two sons out there, yeah, there's a different nervousness to it, I guess. There's a different, because again, when you're not playing and you're not in control, you know, it's always someone else has the control. That's not as much fun as a coach, or to me it isn't. And I maybe one of these days I'll look back and say, man, that was fun. I'm sure one of these days I will, and I'm kind of joking about it. But it's different, and it's you know, it's not all fun and games and laughter. There's been some tough nights, but it is what it is. I have two good kids, and they work their asses off. But yeah, one of these days I'll be able to look back and say I had a little bit more fun than I do right now.
And Evansville's a great area for high school basketball. Of course, Christian Lander from down there, but you had Alex Hemingway, just went to Clemson, and always a lot of talent. Albert Cheney, of course, from there, amongst many, many others. But a great area for basketball. How's your kids? I think they go to Evansville Harrison, right? Or Memorial?
No, they go to Evansville Memorial.
Memorial, yeah.
They go to Memorial. Yep.
How's
And,
Memorial going
I'll
to
have
be?
Well, we had a pretty dang good year last year. We had two, we were led by two kids that were predominantly football players. One, Michael Lindauer, went to Cincinnati, and the other one went to Southern Illinois, Branson Combs. And we had Sam DeVault, who signed it basketball to Austin Peay. So we lost an awful lot this year, but we got, again, it's the roller coaster. It's the up and downs, and we'll be a little young this year, but we've done this before.
And we talked a little bit about this off air. It's not just high school, college as well, but the game is different today. The kids are different today. The way they're treated, the way they're coached, approached. Some of them are coddled. There's a lot of things that you can't do today. And some of it's justifiable, but then there's other things that you can't do because somebody's going to get mad or somebody's not getting enough playing time or whatever.
It's a different thing. Again, back when you and I were doing this, and good friend of ours, Todd Leary, we've talked about it. It just was a different time. Now, does that make that time better than today? I'm not saying that. It was just a different time, and the way things are done today, and you're always worrying about kids. Back where. In Floyd Central, if you lived on this street, you went to Floyd Central. You lived on this street, you went to New Albany, and you lived on this street, you went to Charleston. And there was no questions about it. And today, with kids being able to go anywhere they want as a freshman, it's a different time. And of course, AAU's grown to the point of in some sports, it's the AAU stuff or the out of season stuff has taken over high school sports. There's a number of kids I know that are wonderful and great soccer players, and they don't even play for their high school teams because they're out, doing this travel stuff. And I've jokingly, I've joked about it, but then in part of me, I say, I don't know here in 10 years, what high school sports do we still have? And it is changing. And I hope it's, somehow it gets a grip to where we get back a little bit of control. But, I've said that I've thought, I never thought this time would come where you could go any school you want. And you live on the east side and go to the west side for a school or north side or wherever. I mean, it doesn't really matter anymore. And so that stuff has changed. And that's not just in Evansville. That's anywhere. But that stuff has changed. And I mean, again, where we're from at Floyd Central, you wouldn't have ever dreamed of going to New Albany, just the same if you were in New Albany, you'd never have dreamed of going to Jeffersonville. And that stuff has changed so much. AAU has created, which, you watch the NBA, these super teams. Well, AAU's done the same thing. And hell, like I said, it's not too far from doing it in high school.
Yeah, and we look at it, you talk about that, it used to be kind of a community thing, our community against their community and all that, and that was part of the fun and part of the enjoyment of it. And now you mentioned AAU, and Indiana has the open transfer, you can go wherever you want. And then also class basketball has come into effect, obviously, and at first I thought maybe that was good, but I don't know, man. It just seems to have eroded some of the fabric of Indiana basketball.
Indiana, I remember in '89 when we were seniors and we went to the Final Four and got upset, or not upset, we got beat by Kokomo. And Montross and Leary won it for Lawrence North. And, the next year was Bailey's senior year. And then the next year, I believe, we went class. And I remember being at IU, Chris Reynolds, our teammate at IU, kind of always laughed about it because he's like, man, you guys had one of the greatest things ever over there. Why'd you mess it up? Of course, he's from Illinois, where I think they have 6 classes, and he would even say that was always looked at as kind of prestigious. Maybe not it was the best thing. It was just kind of a different thing. Man, there was only one champion in that state. And when they switched that, again, I'm not smart enough to argue this, but I think they did it for the financial gain. And I don't know, maybe it has gained in finances with IJ. I don't think it has. I go to an awful lot of gyms in sectionals, regionals, and semi-states, and they weren't packed the way they were back in the late 80s and early 90s. I mean, back then you couldn't – I remember in high school scalping tickets at the sectionals, regionals, and semi-states. And now you're handing tickets away. And I just don't think it's helped financially, but I thought it was great the way it was. I always told the story. I did an interview a couple weeks ago where I talked about growing up in Borden, and I went to Floyd Central, obviously. But if Borden could have upset the big boy, up in the Jasper area, Southridge, and these schools, when that small school can upset the big boy school, even for sectional, that makes the year. And, I know it's not a state championship, but even if you can upset the big boy or the big dog or the big brother up the road, that was a big thing back in that day. And
it was a legacy.
You could have some statues built if you could just upset the big boy down the road. And that's gone nowadays.
Yeah, and then we move on to college, and Indiana is not what it was when you were there right now. They're trying to get back there, and one of the things that Archie Miller has talked about is recruiting inside out the Indiana players, because under the Tom Crean era, they kind of got away from that. Archie is doing seems to be a good job of getting the Indiana kids back in, and I don't think people understand. It's not just because they're from Indiana, but a kid from Indiana is different than a kid from another state, at least in my opinion, because basketball is ingrained in them from the very start.
I think there's something to that, and again, when I say this, I don't want to offend the other 49 states, and that's not in any way, shape, or form what I'm doing. I do think that, and I may move it out just a little bit and say Midwest, but I can only speak for when I was playing. Back in that day, a Midwest basketball player had a different thing about him. I don't know what it was. I'm not saying we were back in that day any more talented than what kids are today from the Midwest or outside the Midwest. Probably weren't as talented. But the thing is, there was a Midwestern style of basketball play, in my opinion, that the Gene Cadys, the Bob Knights, those coaches loved, and probably weren't they may argue with me, but I think we were very easy to coach. I think we had great high school coaching. I think maybe there was a little bit of a plateau where we were built on something, and then we grew when we got to college, but we had a little bit of a levelness to us when we got there. And plus, it's like I always said, when I went to IU, the guys that I played with, and of course I went with 7. There were 7 of us freshmen, but we were all good kids from good families, good education, had to go to class in high school. I mean, I hear of stories in today's world where kids are going to, 3-4 different high schools in 3 or 4 different years. It's amazing to me throughout the country. And again, we start getting into that AAU stuff, but I'm just telling you, the kids that I went to, they were all good kids. I'm not saying rich, poor, whatever. We were all different, but we all kind of had the same basis. We all kind of had the same instincts. And, well, all those kids that we went to, and a couple didn't make it. Chris Lawson transferred and Thunderberg transferred. But I'm just saying, as a core whole, we were just pretty level-headed. And Knight always, Knight's, I don't think it's something I'm making up. I mean, Coach Knight recruited parents as much as he recruited players. And so when we got there, we were probably one step ahead of the game. And then, you get up there and then you go back to ground zero because then you know nothing. But it was a different time. And I think Coach Knight was one of the best. And I think Coach Cady was also very good at, recruiting parents just the same as players.
And I've always said that teams that you were on were, no doubt, the greatest teams in the history of IU to not win a national championship. Some bad things came into play, injury to you, of course, and your foot that you had to deal with. Alan Henderson also. But, man, the guys that were on, like they came before you, Eric Anderson, a great guy that we have sadly lost way too soon, and Brian Nover, Brian Evans, Matt Nover that came after you. And then to go along with all the talent you had around you, Todd Leary and Chris Reynolds, Greg Graham, Calbert Cheney, and Pat Graham. Man, that was a group from start to finish that was crazy good. Jamal Meeks, I mean, it's unbelievable the talent that was in that stretch while you were at IU.
Yeah, it was. That was a fun time, and it's not like it's. I don't ever remember looking at it like it was a competition, and it was. I always said the 5 years I was up there, obviously the biggest thing was having the Calvert Chaney, who was without question for 4 years your best player, for 4 years your hardest worker, and for 4 years probably the most naive kid, because I don't think until probably his junior year did he know how good he was. And it was just a bunch of guys that, I don't think it's any secret that when you won at Indiana, the week was a lot easier than if you lost. And so if you just it was very military-like. It was very much, if you win, this is going to be a fun week. Not that it'd be easy, but it was a fun week. And if you lost, you were going to have to pay the piper. And so we figured out real quick, it's not how many you score, it's not how much playing time you get, just figure out how to win, and then we move on. And we did that for 5 years, and things worked out that way. But it was very much, it was Calvert's team. We all knew it. It took us about 3 or 4 or 5 games our freshman year to figure it out. But after we figured it out, and of course he was the best at that, because he was the hardest worker, and you never took any days off and all that good stuff. But yeah, you win, it was fun. You lost, it wasn't so much. And that's kind of the way we played it every year, not every year, every week. That was kind of your mindset. And so that was kind of our game plan from start of the season to the end of the season.
We'll be back with more with Pat Graham here from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios on Indiana Sports Beat right after this. Hello, everybody. Jim Coyle from Indiana Sports Beat. When I'm not covering the Hoosiers, you can find me at Bubba's 33 in Clarksville, located on the northeast corner of I-65 at Veterans Parkway. Bubba's 33 has hand-tossed pizzas, bold burgers, and ice-cold beer from a select list of local craft brewers. An incredible food selection, all made fresh daily. Whether you're meeting the team for that post-win meal in the family dining area or meeting friends for happy hour to watch the game on one of Bubba's 50 TVs. Bubba's 33 in Clarksville. Pizza, burgers, beer.
We all want a winning smile for those championship photos, and that's exactly what you will get at Reynolds Family Dentistry in Sellersburg. Reynolds Family Dentistry has been serving the dental needs of Hoosier families for over 30 years. Let Doctors Roger and Jay Reynolds take care of your family. Just off of I-65 at 809 South Indiana Avenue in Sellersburg. Call 812-246-3368. That's Reynolds Family Dentistry, 812-246-3368.
Now that warm weather has arrived, it's time to hit the links, and there's no better place than the Golf Club at Eagle Point in Bloomington. Voted best golf course by the readers of the Bloomington Herald-Times, the Golf Club at Eagle Point is under new ownership, has new fairways and bunkers, and it's open to the public. When the round's over, there's cold beer and a full menu at the Eagle Point Pub and Bistro. Call 812-824-1100 to make a tee time. That's 812-824-1100. The Golf Club at Eagle Point in Bloomington.
This is AJ Moye.
This is Dan Dockett. Hey, this is Michael Lord, former Indiana basketball player.
This is Indiana football coach Tom Allen.
This is Jim Coyle with the Indiana Sports Beat. You can always like and follow us on Facebook. Always follow the show rebroadcast on iTunes, Google Play, iHeartRadio, Spotify. TheDailyHoosier.com is a great place to sign up for each and every day. Or, of course, on 97.7 The Ref in Evansville. For the best recycling and waste removal service, turn to the area's leader, Sweetland Waste Removal and Recycling, a homegrown company serving southern Indiana since 1995. Sweetland Waste Removal and Recycling serves Floyd, Clark, Harrison, and Washington counties. For excellent service and peace of mind, call Sweetland Waste Removal and Recycling today at 812-944-5642. That's 812-944-5642. Keep life sweet with Sweetland Waste Removal and Recycling.
Hi, this is AJ Moye, and you're listening to Indiana Sports Beat with Jim Coyle.
Today's guest is brought to you by Bubba's 33 in Clarksville, with hand-tossed pizzas, bold burgers, and ice-cold beer. Pizza, burgers, beer. Bubba's 33 in Clarksville. Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat with Jim Coyle here from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, and we are grateful to be talking with Pat Graham. And you guys, and I'm not saying all 13 or however many that there were, but you guys were tight too. I mean, it was a unique group and a group of characters. I mean, some really fun guys on that team. Like I mentioned, Eric Anderson was a great one. Yourself, Jamal Meeks, Todd Leary, Bailey was on there as well. I mean, what a group of characters that had to make it fun, because you have to have fun because it's a serious deal. It's almost like a job.
The 7 freshmen, my senior year, 6 of us lived in the dorm together, and Funderburk had an apartment off the side, and because he kind of was a late sign, and the following year we all moved to we moved to apartments, and there was Jackson Heights Apartments is where most of us live, and there was a lot of football players, and there was a lot of wrestlers that were there, and there was a lot of basketball players, and I learned quickly that, you're with these guys so much that I normally didn't room with a basketball player. Now, that didn't mean that they weren't 27 steps down the way, but I normally always roomed with a friend and not so much a basketball player. It was a great group of guys, and we were all from different areas, but we were most of us were Midwest kids, if not Indiana kids. We all got along. It's like I said, was there a couple guys that I played with I didn't care for? Yeah, probably, but they probably said the same thing about me. But when you were on the floor, it was absolute 100% team-oriented, win at all cost, anything for your playing partner, and that's just the way it was. Now, when we got there as freshmen, we were taught that by the Jeff Alphonse, the Mark Robinson, the Eric Anderson, Jamal Meeks. That was ingrained. I mean, that's just the way it was, and that's the way it was when they were freshmen. And it just went over. And of course, when I was a junior and senior and maybe took a little bit more of a leadership role than as a freshman, that's what you tried to instill in those guys. And it just kept, Knight was very good at, he never really told us that. It was that's just the way it was. Again, it was very military-like. You come in as a newbie, you are taught, it's not like we had to carry all the bags off the plane or anything. It wasn't never that type of stuff. It was just freshmen. This is how you're going to act, and this is how we're going to play. And you got a real quick dab into what this is actually here, and it is about wins and losses, and that is it. And it's not about your average or where you're going in the pros or where they got you projected. I mean, Calvert never even heard of that stuff. Alan Henderson never even heard of that stuff when he was at IU, or those guys were at IU. And, I blame a little bit on that. Social media is here to stay, but on the flip side, social media wasn't around back then. And that has changed a lot of the way basketball and football and baseball and tennis or whatever the heck you play. That has changed the world a lot. But, yeah, Calvert Chaney was never – everybody in the country knew he was one of the best players in the country, but as far as, the agents and all the NBA talk, it just wasn't around the way it is today. It's changed tremendously.
And one of the things that I see, and I might ask you to agree with this part, but mental toughness, the teams you played on, man, those guys would run through brick walls. When I watched today, or the team I watched last year, that was completely lacking. I didn't see mental toughness. I didn't see a team playing together. And I see such a difference. And I'm not saying that's every year and every team, but, man, it's a marked difference because that's something that you never had to worry about before. And now it seems like it's hit or miss, not just for Indiana. I mean, just in college basketball or sports in general. I mean, too many people sometimes seem to be on their own agenda, I guess.
Yes. I think you're right. I think even the Coach Krzyzewski's of the world, who, he's one of the greatest all-time coaches in not only basketball, of any sport. I think he has to deal with that type of stuff today. And that's where I have said, Archie Miller's the right coach or the wrong coach. I don't know that. Here's what I do know. A guy needs anywhere from 3 to 5 years to do what he has to do. And I've used this example for years. I said back when Steve Alford was there and Callaway and those guys, and they won that national championship with Hillman and those guys, Dean Garrett, Keith Smart. I said they were in the Final Four of the team out of UNLV, and I said, if you want to take Tarkanian and you want to give him the Alford team, and you want to take Coach Knight and give him the UNLV team, I said, I'm going to tell you there's 2 teams that wouldn't have won it, and that was Vegas and Indiana. I said, a coach has his way of doing things. A coach has his style of doing things. And until he has time to get those kids, you're just playing a game that he can't win, nor can the team win. And I said, a coach has to have time to get his style of players, his type of kid, his type of players in there, and then go from there. And I think I told this story 3 or 4 weeks ago. I said, Matt Painter, who we played AAU together in high school, same year in '89. And, Matt's first year at Purdue was, I think his first game as a head basketball coach at Purdue was at University of Evansville, and I was at that game. And I said, that may be the worst Big Ten team I've ever seen in my entire life, and it was the Purdue team. I don't know how many years he's been there. It feels like 30, but he's been at Purdue and done some really good things. Well, at the start, it wasn't all peaches and cream, and it took him time to get what he wanted done. And so I think every coach deserves that opportunity to do that and get their type of players and their type of style. I said, if Archie Miller can win at Dayton, he can win at Indiana. But, again, there's people that you didn't win your first year, your second year doesn't look well. Again, if you're a team that's, Kentucky's really the only team, Duke maybe a little bit, this one and done stuff. But if you're not a team that's worried about just getting one and dones, I said you got to give a coach a few years to get his taste in there.
Yeah, I look at Trey Galloway, the most recent commitment to Indiana. And some people may think this is crazy, but I think that might be one of the most important recruits he's had to date, not because he's the best. Trace Jackson is obviously great. Romeo is in the NBA. But Trey Galloway is his type of player. He's a kid that seems to play with mental toughness, that plays with a coach's son's smarts, that has the ability to stay there for 4 years, and he's a utility type player. He can shoot, or he can drive, or play defense. He's that tough, kind of a throwback to the 1989 group to me. But to me, he's the style that Archie's looking for, at least the start of that. And for that reason, I think he might be one of the most important recruits he's signed to date.
I'm not saying Bob Knight hung the moon here. What I'm saying is Galloway would have been a kid that Bob Knight would have recruited. Simple as that. My dad jokes with us all the time, and Todd Leary and I spoke about this. I know Todd Leary and myself and Brian. I know we were all good players coming out of high school. That's not what I'm questioning. What I'm questioning is if we were coming out of high school today, would we be getting recruited by the Indianas, the Purdues, the Kentuckys, the Louisvilles, and all these schools? And you think about that, that's the question mark. And I don't know. I don't know where we would fit in today's game being recruited. But I do know this, the Galloway kid is a kid, I'll say the word style, the style of play that back in the 89, 90 years, he would have fit in with us. Just kind of, like you said, kind of a throwback kid, win at all costs, does everything. I don't know what he does great. I know he does a lot of things really well. And that's kind of the way we all were back in that day. You did everything pretty well. Yes, I could shoot it, and this guy could rebound, or this Calvert was great pull up, or whatever everyone kind of had a strength, maybe your go-to thing, but you were decent at everything. And he very much is that type of player.
So you speaking of your dad, I think your dad's name's John. You both just had a birthday recently.
Yes, back in mid-July. Yeah, we did. both on the same day. And hell, he forgets and I forget, and we forget each other's age too. So if my wife and my mom don't remind us, we never remember it.
And I've talked to Todd about, because I know Todd's a golfer. He loves to golf. We've talked about going and playing. And I said, well, does Pat play? So, well, Pat doesn't play a lot anymore. More into fishing. And I've seen the pictures. I think you went down to either Lake Barkley or Cumberland not too long ago for a fishing trip. How's the fishing been?
Well, down in Kentucky Lake and Barkley, I love going down there, and the Asian carp's gotten taken a hold down there. It's not as what it once was, but when I first moved to town, I met a family by the name of Brinkers down here that were life golfers. I mean, that was their life. And I was competitive enough and dumb enough to get kind of involved in it, and kind of got to where I worked on that a lot, and I fell in love with it. But then on the flip side, it's a 6 to 8 hour day on Saturday and Sundays when you do it. And I fell out of love with it real quick, but I've always enjoyed bass fishing, so that's kind of my favorite. But I get rid of these kids, I'm gonna get back on the fishing game a little bit more.
Well, it's a fun, easy type of thing. But getting back to Indiana basketball, I know you follow them. You don't get to make it. When's the last time you've actually got to make it to a game? Because now you've got kids. You're coaching basketball. You're also coaching at Evansville Memorial as well, correct?
Yeah, I coach, and so that takes, with pregame and scouting and all that stuff. I just can't get up to Bloomington the way I used to, and I try to get up there as much as I can. About 3 years ago, I think, was the last time I was there. I haven't seen a game the last 2 years in Bloomington, but I obviously watch every game I can on television and stay up with them, and obviously still root for them. I mean, that's where my heart is, and I try to stay away from the negativity as much as possible, because, like I said, I just know how difficult it is, and especially with what Archie has up there, even with Coach Crean up there. And it doesn't matter. It feels like, most people that are IU fans feel it's been, 50 years since Bob Knight was up there, but you're still following that name. And it's never, well, Kelvin Sampson did this or Mike Davis did this. No one ever brings those guys' names up. They're still following the Knight ghost, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I still, they still have such a name to follow. Whoever takes that job, it's still the Bob Knight ghost that lives up there, and he's, again, he's got a tough road to go. But on the flip side, I can't imagine coaching anywhere else. I think it's still should be one of the top programs in the country. I know we have fell off here in the last years, but I still think that has a chance to be one of the best jobs in the country, just as the Kentuckys, the Louisvilles, and anybody else. And, again, I wish you nothing but the very best.
And, you speaking of the Kentuckys and Louisvilles, Indiana has played Louisville the last couple of years, but Kentucky, for people like me who grew up in southern Indiana, man, I didn't care about Purdue. I didn't really know that Purdue was that big of a rival until I got to IU. But Kentucky, to me, was always the big rival. And that's a series that went on forever. It was one of the best series in college basketball. And now, of course, we don't have that. And, man, that sucks to me. And I think that's something that should be brought back as soon as possible. But I don't see any change coming anytime soon. But, man, that's something that I greatly miss. And I know that a ton of Hoosier fans miss as well.
Well, and I've always told this story. When I went to IU, I had family that were Purdue fans. I had family and friends that were Kentucky fans, and living down where we did, where you were 10 minutes from University of Louisville, an hour and a half from Bloomington, an hour and a half from Lexington, and then 3 hours from Lafayette. It just was basketball haven back in that day. And so when I went to Bloomington, the Todd Learys and these guys that were from Indianapolis and Greg Graham, it was, their parents can't go to work on the day after Purdue lost. And I'm sitting here thinking, Purdue lost, I'm more worried about the Kentucky game. And it was always kind of a running joke. And granted, you had to play Purdue twice, but the Kentucky thing was just always such a big part of me, just again from where I grew up. And to have lost that, I hate it. But, it all comes down to finances, and I don't know really who's in control of that. And, I can't believe and imagine that game's not on the docket year in and year out, just as Kentucky and Louisville should be on the docket, and Indiana and Louisville should play. And it's just the way it is. If Purdue or Indiana ever leaves the Big Ten and that we lose that game, I mean, that's silly. But I don't know who makes that call. A lot of people blame it on Calipari, and a lot of people blame it on this or that. And to be honest with you, I'm not smart enough to understand all those, positive and negatives. I just know I wish the game would happen, but it's going to be probably a long time before it ever does.
We'll certainly see. I hope not, but I'm afraid that you're correct. We'll certainly find out. What's new for Pat Graham? What's coming up? I know you guys got the basketball season that's down the road a little bit. Anything coming up for the rest of the summer that you're looking to do?
No, I actually worked out all summer, had a good summer, and then school starts next week, and I kind of enjoy the boys home. I'm not big on school starting, but you got one more year, and then that one's off to college, and then I don't know what I'll do. I guess I'll go back to the fishing thing, but we've got most of our stuff done, kind of getting ready for next week's school starting, so get ready for that.
Well, we started doing the post-game shows with Todd last year, so we're probably going to be doing something down there from Evansville on the road games, so you can come out and join us some whenever you're able. Now, I have to let you know that Todd makes me call him the Todd Father now.
He just called me. I've been called so much in my lifetime. I'll just be called Pat, and I'll be happy.
Yeah, just kidding. He doesn't really, but I made that up. But he's a character. He did come up with the fact that he wants to have a Toddcast.
Oh yeah, he can always think of it. I'll promise you that. He's thought about it all,
and he'll certainly let you know, won't he?
I'm like, you got more ideas. I said, I don't have enough time to come up with as many ideas as you do, but he's a good one. He's a good one.
He is. We appreciate Todd. We love him to death, man. We're grateful to have him. But I couldn't be any more grateful for you for taking the time, Pat. I've been looking forward to this for a long time. I'm grateful for you to have spent your time with us, and look forward to when we get closer to the season to having you on again. Value your opinions and your thoughts on IU basketball and IU overall. But, man, thank you so much.
Well, hopefully we can get things going back the better way. And anytime I can come on or do anything for you, I don't ever mind giving my opinion on it. Might not be what everybody wants to hear, but I'm probably like Leary a little bit. I don't mind giving it.
Well, we appreciate it, brother, and say hello to the family, your wife, and we look forward to running into you sometime soon. But thank you so much, and good luck as the season approaches for you guys there at Evansville Memorial.
Thank you very much. Best of luck.
Thank you. Pat Graham joining us. Man, so happy to have Pat on. I've been wanting to have him on for a long time. Good friend of mine from the old days in southern Indiana. But that's going to wrap up at the show today. Coming to you, of course, from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios. We'll be back tomorrow with plenty more on Indiana Sports Beat. So until then, I'm Jim Coyle, and I will see you on the radio.